Welcome to the Sport Enchanters podcast, episode 2, presented by themeltingpress.com. This is Conor Hayes, and I'm joined by Colm Booth, David Hughes, and James McDermott. You're very welcome along, lads. We'll begin in Paris. Begin with the rugby again this week. It was a 17-all game, kind of unsatisfactory in rugby when it's a draw. It's so unusual. So considering that we had no chance, being the general idea, was this a great result?
I think in the context of the results that went before, yeah, you'd have to classify it as great. It was certainly a big improvement in what we've seen. It was up there with, the first half anyway, it was up there with that sort of Australia-like intensity. Johnny Sexton was 4 or 5 times where you could see him taking contact from a big French forward and holding him up in the tackle and setting up a turnover, this choke tackle that they're employing. Certainly it was a big improvement. Yeah, definitely.
James, what do you think of the second half, though?
Much the same. I mean, we did cough up that awful line out in 2022. We also,
was it
it's
not a
hard
missed
for neither
opportunity?
side. It's very hard for neither side to go in with the lead at half time in Paris and keep the head, because we do have this dogging inferior complex when it comes to actually holding on at sporting events.
I think we've seem to have an inferiority complex when playing in Paris, and maybe not even playing in Paris, just playing playing the French generally. I think they've knocked us out of 2 Rugby World Cups and 2 Football World Cups, and I was really hoping that we'd kind of do it yesterday. So it wasn't a missed opportunity then. I mean, we had 10 minutes in their 22.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a missed opportunity when you're 11 points up at half time in Stade de France. Particularly when you're playing a French team that has not clicked during this tournament and didn't really click at any stage during the match yesterday.
There's some awful decision making. There's some awful instances of decision making. One, I think, I can't remember who exactly it was. Maybe it was Heathcliff carrying the ball out wide, and Earls with less than a yard to play with at the touchline. Heathcliff frees into contact, resets, and we have another phase. Gives it to Earls. Earls just put it in play right away.
One of the worst decisions was Tommy Bogo deciding to kick it.
I was shouting at the TV screen.
It all worked out well in the end, which is what it's all about. Did Murray justify his selection?
I thought, in terms of what Declan Kidney wanted from him, or what we assumed Declan Kidney wanted from him, he actually did have quite a good first half. But at the same time, and I know it's a very common thing with substitute scrum halves coming on, being able to inject pace. But when Redden came on, that sort of 10-minute spell from 60 minutes to 70 was by far the best piece of possession Ireland had in the game. It's the most threatening we looked. And once again, I can't see how it's a coincidence. I really think that Owen Redden makes the team tick.
Even Schmidt for Leinster picks Boss being more physical scrum half away from home over Redden.
Yeah, but last year
you can kind of defend Kidney's selection. That's a good point.
You can, except for last year, Redden was the scrum half for all of the knockout games, be they home or away. Yeah. And the reason for that is he's first choice scrum half. Boss is an excellent backup, particularly at provincial level. And I think the reason he gets to play the away games is because you want to keep him sweet. You want to keep everyone looking in. I think Redden, for me, has to start.
Right. Pearson's performance, the referee yesterday, what do we think? I mean, it seemed to me he was rubbish for both sides, my personal opinion.
Yeah,
equally.
He was just a poor referee. I mean, that's it comes down to it. One of the decisions I was particularly disgusted with was Wayne Barnes. Rob Kearney had an absolutely astonishingly good game, with possibly the exception of one phase of play where he overcooked a Gary Owen and then got caught out for pace for the try. But there was a French penalty, kick to touch. Sort of one of these big raking touch finders, went over the line. Kearney followed it out, jumped in the air, stayed off the ground, and tapped it back in, and which was a brilliant display of athleticism and knowing the rules. And Barnes gave the French that 60-metre gain down into our territory.
There was some Manny's this morning calls. Obviously, one Sexton, the late hit, that seemed to me in the 22.
Yeah,
that seemed
definitely
clear as day. But obviously, also we were lucky. I mean, Keane Healy going for a midnight stroll in the enemy territory was as hilarious as it was ridiculous. So next week, though, just come through. Paul O'Connell and Murray are out, so the decision has been made for Kidney now. He's going to have to play Redden. But how big a loss is Paul O'Connell now?
Well, I think he's a huge loss in terms of obviously he's a huge loss. He's our best second row by a mile. He's been very influential over the start of the Six Nations. I do think, particularly having regard to the fact that we've lost to Wales, we've drawn with France. There's no Triple Crown on offer. There's no championship on offer. I think we need to experiment with this team. I think we need to give new guys a chance to play in the Test arena with a view to getting that sort of magical first ever win over the All Blacks in the summer tour in the 3 tests we're going to play against them.
You've got to think we've 3 tests against them, and it has to end sometime.
You'd hope so.
You've got to think.
And like maybe O'Connell being out is a chance to play Donnacha Ryan and Dan Toohey for Ulster, who's having a fantastic season, and in the absence of Johan Muller recently, I think has started calling lineouts for them. So if you can have another leader in the second row, if you have 2 dynamic second rows, that could change things up.
Let's be honest though, Kidney isn't going to do that, is he?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. Looking at the team he played yesterday, when there was such a call for some kind of change after the Italy game, I can't see him making too much.
We're yet to see Kidney with nothing to play for, though.
Are we not? I mean last year, Nations?
Well, again, I still think England is always an exception in that sense.
I wish they made France.
I mean, this is literally the most pointless match I can remember in a long time.
The year we won the Grand Slam, Kidney made 4 changes from a winning side against Scotland, second last game of the Six Nations, and it invigorated. I think it invigorated.
I always go back to that. He put Stringer at the scrum half. And Stringer had a great game that day, and it was absolutely brilliant. And at that point, because Kidney was still new, everyone at the time was like, finally we have a coach who's going to risk. He's going to risk and to make changes and change winning teams to help freshen things up, and unfortunately it never happened. But I really fancy Scotland for next week. I do. I think they're due a win, first of all, and second of all, Ireland at home in recent years, even got from Croke Park and Lansdowne Road, it's not been great. And Scotland beat us 2 years ago, obviously the last game of Croker. So I have a sneaking suspicion for Scotland. Am I way off the mark?
I don't know. Scotland have been very good in the championship so far. I thought they were excellent against France. I think your man Stuart Hogg looks a real find for Scotland at fullback. When you compare him to the more staid kind of play you had from Chris Patterson for the last sort of 10 years, it's sort of incomparable, really. Compare something that's incomparable. I don't know how you do that.
So if we kind of move on from that, we wanted to get to it last week, but we kind of ran out of time. Was the under 20s won 3 out of 3, including a win in France, in Grenoble,
which is similarly unheard of. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened since moved to the under 20 format anyway.
Which is great. And one thing that struck me from just reading the team sheet was the amount of players from Connacht that was there. I mean, not that there's a huge amount of them, but certainly more representation than you would have expected.
It's more representation than Munster have, I believe.
Which is incredibly worrying if you're a Munster fan.
I think Connacht took a severe blow this year. Unfortunately, the year they finally get into the Heineken Cup, losing 4 players to Leinster and Munster. I think next year that their recruitment has actually, certainly the overseas guys they've brought in, has actually been the best that they've had in some time. They're getting your man Nathan White at tight head from Leinster. He looks a fairly serious operator. He's ahead of Jamie Hagan for Leinster, and he was one of these big lost guys who Connacht gave up to Leinster.
A huge problem for Connacht, from my point of view, is outside of Galway City, you talk to people who watch the game of rugby from Connacht, they all support Munster.
Yeah.
And Connacht, and the problem is, like you say, well, they'll become successful, people will follow them, but the problem is if you don't have any fans, how do you become successful? You know, vicious cycle. So hopefully that'll change with more success.
Yeah, hopefully, like they're signing your man Nathan White at tight head and Dan Parks coming in at out half will definitely. I know he has his limitations as a player.
He's going to give him some steel and experience.
He's got a lot of experience. He's going to kick his goals, which is something Connacht had a real problem with this year. And with these guys you're talking about from the under 20s, the fullback Leyden looks a serious player, and if they can incorporate a few of the under 20 guys around the best of what they have there now and a couple of new recruits, I think Connacht are looking at a decent season next year.
On France, they were poor. I mean,
but they have been poor. They've been poor the whole championship.
Exactly. Was Lieberman? Was he in fact a genius? No, I mean, but
Domenech got France to a World Cup final as well. I think
it's a lot easier in rugby as well.
I think I was reading. I don't know whether it was in the Indo or the Times. A piece about Thierry Dusautoir, where it said that it's the first 2 years of his captaincy he wasn't very vocal, but over the World Cup in particular last year, but particularly over the course of the World Cup, he really took on the role of leader in that French camp, a bit like sort of mirroring the Zidane character for the French World Cup in 2006, the soccer World Cup. Yeah. That he was really the guy who led, particularly in that last week before the World Cup final.
Right, that's great. We're going to move on from rugby now. We're going to go to golf because Rory McIlroy became world number one last night. I have to say, I think the world number one thing is slightly overrated. I mean, it's a great thing if you're Tiger Woods and you do it for however many years he was world number one. But I'm not sure it just become world number one. But what I was impressed with McIlroy was the fact that Woods had the best Sunday round he ever had. He was charging up the field. You could hear the roars going around the grandstands or whatever. And McIlroy was able to keep calm. And we've seen McIlroy have these great rounds. When he won at Quail Hollow, he was like
fantastic,
10 under. And then we've seen him had these last round at Augusta type rounds. Whereas this round was a real gritty round. Par golf, as he called himself. So that was really impressive.
Just on that number one thing, though, it's one thing to say it's not really worthwhile dealing with, but at 22, I think it really is. I mean, it's a real signal of intent. It's not like Luke Donald, who's been rattling around, getting good, consistent results. You're talking about a guy who's nailed up he's wrapped up his major 21. He's 22. He's golf's most exciting thing. I think it's the most excited it's the most excited golf can be about number one by Tiger Woods. Yeah, and it signals the start of maybe a great rivalry, because if Woods can do what he did on the last day in the Honda Classic,
and don't forget Mickelson has already won this year. So I mean, if you've got those three guys, those are the three best golfers.
If you see Tiger turn up at its favourite place, Augusta, and win the Masters, we could have a few years
shaping up lovely.
A lot of fun.
But if McIlroy wants to look to the dangers of being a kind of a proxy world number one, he just has to ask his girlfriend. So there is the danger there. Remember when we used to think that Woods was weird, but it was in the sense that he was kind of robotic. He was so unfeeling. It turns out Eldrick grew up into quite the nut job. Did anyone hear the story this week that he wanted to become a Navy SEAL?
Did
what is this guy? What happened to this guy? He's not. He's a figure of fun now, isn't he? As good as he was on Sunday, and he will win more golf turns, I'm sure. But in this kind of stuff coming out in the media, he's become a sort of joke figure.
Well, he's been in the media spotlight since he was 3 years old. Like, he's been a prodigy for his entire life. He's had to deal with this media pressure, and to be honest, the most surprising thing about him was that he was so boring, because it'd just have to warp you. Like, there's no way. I mean, look at Michael Jackson.
I was going to say, it worked really well for him.
Yeah. He's one of the few,
So is there a danger of that with McIlroy? Because McIlroy is the same sort of prodigy character.
In terms of Woods, the media. I mean, within golf, McIlroy, he was always touted as being a guy who could do great things. But I think for Woods as an American, and the first black American to really make waves on the golf scene. I think the media spotlight was certainly intensified for him.
That's fair enough. Right, we're going to move on from golf. We're going to go to football. Dave Hughes, United yesterday beat Spurs 3-1, which was a great result. How good is Ashley Young?
Big debate is about how good he is. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of him. I think he. Obviously, look at his goals yesterday. I think he's added so much to a team that you don't get from a lot of players. He's always threatening. He's basically a better version of Stuart Downing. I think this upgrade of Stuart.
Wouldn't be
Downing.
hard.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very hard at all. It's part of the course. But
so do United have in Valencia, Nani and Young, 3 of the 4 best wingers? obviously Bale as well is up there, and yet they have no one in centre midfield. How did Fergie allow this to happen?
That's again, it's the who is the main great centre midfielders out there in the Premier League? That's the question at the minute. Like if we look at the debate going around, Gerrard's the best. That Keane was the big governor for the years, and Vieira was. Is there anyone really out there who can kind of rival Keane or Vieira at the minute? That's the question.
It's an interesting one, but I don't know. It's surprising that he's been able to find great nuggets.
True.
As James used the expression last week, but he hasn't been able to find it at centre midfield.
Football has evolved, so it's not require a Keane figure or a Vieira figure. Because simply because there aren't that many of them out there anymore. Now look, Ferguson has won titles without centre midfielders for a long time now. He won them with teams basically. This is slightly different. This is a miracle if he wins it with this team. Yeah. But he's won them with teams that had extremely potent attacking force and extremely organised defence, and two very fast and effective inside wingers. Essentially.
But I'm sorry, just to interject, like to say that there isn't the Keane or Vieira type figure out there anymore. You're probably right in terms of box to box midfielders, but you do still have great central midfielders.
I'm not saying the success is not.
It's been awful having to watch United over the last sort of 5 years. Their central midfield.
No, I agree with that. My point is, it might not be as pivotal to success as we first thought. And
when you have all those other factors,
I don't think. The United teams that Fergie managed to churn titles out of in the last few years would have won titles in the previous year when centre midfield was much more important a battle to win. Yeah. But having said that, there are great centre midfielders around there. City have Yaya Toure, and a top quality box-to-box midfielder. But it's a different type to your Keanes and your Vieiras.
Hugely different. Just going back to the game. The Spurs game, I thought United were lucky, and not in the sense that they were outplayed. This idea they were outplayed, they were. I mean, they were the second best team in the first half, but they weren't outplayed. I thought Ferguson bigged that up because he wanted to get the idea across that that luck was with them. Kind of playing a bit of mind games. But they were very lucky in the sense that without Bale or Parker, we saw the limitations of Spurs, didn't we? They're based on pace down the wings and Parker guarding the kind of the space in front of the back four.
Like that's exactly. It's how can you defend against that? With Bale, the whole is pace. There's very few left backs, right backs who can actually defend against that at the minute.
And Lennon as well is very important. Completely. I think Lennon's slightly underrated. Lennon didn't play against Arsenal last week, and I thought they really missed him. If you have Bale and Lennon together, you've probably got an unbelievable threat there, like Man United's wings.
Yeah, I said to him. I think if you took Scott Parker and Gareth Bale out of any side, you'd notice a few limitations. What side wouldn't miss Gareth Bale and Scott Parker at the moment? I'm sorry. I refused to pick Bale up last season, but I've come to believe he's actually a top.
No, I think Bale. We may have touched on this last week, but Bale reinventing himself. He has managed to. When he first burst onto the scene, it was all about the pace, but he's managed to add other strings to his bow, and as such, I do think he really is a top player. But
Jamie, all right.
But I mean, I think there's a huge amount of revisionism going on about Scott Parker and the impact he's having. Johnny Giles, I mean, he may not have had his finger on the pulse of the English game for some time, but,
or any game.
But he made the point that I think what Parker's doing is he's sitting and he's making a lot of strategic fouls in front of the Tottenham back four. It's protecting them, but I don't think he's this world-class operator who's single-handedly dominating midfield.
He's just become England captain, so I don't think that view is going to be quite popular.
No one's saying he's a world-class operator.
He just had so much balance.
What I'm saying is that Spurs really needed him on their side.
I honestly...
but you said any side would miss Scott Parker, and I don't think you can hold that as the case.
If United had signed Parker at the start of the season, they could have got him on a free. He'd be on less wages at United than he would have been on Spurs. Again, it's just a complete hypothetical, but you've got to think that they might be ahead of Man City now. Do you think? I mean, he'd be worth a few points, wouldn't he? For United in that midfield.
I'm not sure that he would have. Look at the games that United have played. You think maybe he would have brought more balance to the side. Would they have won more games because of it? They've won a hell of a lot of games. They've picked up a hell of a lot of points.
In the Champions League, he might have helped. Bit more the extra experience. I know the whole.
He doesn't have a whole lot of.
Experience. He's an older head though.
He's an older head, and he's also a mentally sound footballer, and you can't You can't, but you can't. Like,
a mentally sound footballer. I mean, the guy knew there was a game against United coming up, and the dying seconds of the Arsenal match, he knew he was on a yellow card, or a yellow card would have him suspended, and he went in for a rash, stupid, and petty challenge that you wouldn't say that, oh, there's a man with experience, there's a man who's looking out for the best interests of his club, there's a man who's a sound-minded footballer. It was a stupid challenge, and he left his club in trouble.
That is actually a very good point, and well, I've been told. So if we go to the title running, there is this now idea that United have seen off their hardest fixtures, which they no doubt have. But I think the idea, which a lot of people do, is look at the next. There's 11 fixtures left, but they look at the next 6 and they go, who's going to drop points here? I always think that's a bit. Well, completely pointless, basically, because you could say City have the harder fixtures, but teams always drop points in the running where you don't expect.
Yeah. Blackburn winning at United last.
I think this particular United side is in danger of dropping points to weaker sides.
It's not
something that didn't creep into the old United side.
It's not a team of override teams that they used to. Remember there used to be great functionality about United sides when they faced lower teams. Exactly.
You'd it would be a 1-0, 2-0, but never really in doubt. I'm not really sure if that stability is still there, because it's hard to give stability with Johnny Evans as centre half. True. Because you can't really account for what might happen.
I thought Ferdinand, especially in the first half of the season, he looked like, he was finished, but I thought he did play very well yesterday. Although then he did make the mistake for the goal, but 90th minute, 3-0 up. It's slightly. It
was Giggs' pass though.
It was also Giggs' pass.
That would be my mistake. Would be the guy giving the ball away to the forward.
Two wrongs never make a right. Like Ferdinand shouldn't turn his back on a shot. That's not good defending. But it's not important. The point is that if he can keep that form up, bar the last last minute or so, then United do have a chance of keeping clean sheets.
And De Gea likewise.
Yeah,
his form up.
You see, the thing about De Gea, I think they might have. It looks to me like they might have told him, don't come out and claim crosses. Just stay in your line. And I honestly do think that's a better ploy than coming out. Obviously, than coming out and missing.
He's also a super shot stopper anyway. That's the thing.
As people were saying, I read during the week about how Van der Sar at his age still on the bench.
Oh yeah.
Schmeichel at his age, God knows. The guy's still 21.
Given's a loan of Sunderland at that stage.
Exactly. I mean,
one thing I worry about, I think I've said it before, I worry about his bravery. He's going in with his feet where he should be going in with his hands and his head, and I don't know if you can coach that. So that would be my worry for him long term. You saw with Czech what happened when he lost the bravery, obviously, and obviously you can't coach it, but you can lose it in terms of if you have fracture your skull.
Of course,
So we saw that
against Stephen Hunt.
Czech is still a fantastic goalkeeper, but he did lose that bravery, and I think we all could see the difference in his game. And I wonder if De Gea can be taught that, to be honest with you. So that would be my worry on De Gea. But there's Lindegaard. Lindegaard's been injured. Lindegaard's been fine. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a massive problem there. Just on City, there's this idea that they've never won a title, but they have experienced players. Besides Colo Touré and Yaya Touré, who've won titles, but won titles from a kind of sitting on, not playing every week, but still won titles. Do they have many players who've won things?
Not really. They're kind of, you look at the likes of Aguero, Zico. They're all Zico winning one Bundesliga. The kind of players who've come from, who are always a star of their own team, never being the best team in the league. If you get me, particularly Aguero, Atletico Madrid. He's won the Europa League, but apart from that, there's not a lot.
I think you're in an instance like this, you really need to look at the cool heads who have won things, such as Mario Balotelli. He has won things, and he's the guy you want to be looking to guide your team calmly through the latter stages.
He was horrific at the weekend. He ended up scoring, but he missed. He could have had.
Adam Johnson's goal.
That assist by Johnson was fantastic. He is
phenomenal.
I hear.
Are we going to say he's the most underrated player? Are we going to make a big statement?
No. I hear him getting a lot of flack from City fans. I think he actually is very much underrated. I think he's an oddity in that England have a player that's talented and refuse to big him up at all. He's underrated in that he's not overrated. Because to be underrated as an Englishman, you simply has to be not overrated. And
I think I got that. Just if we can just finish up this, we're going to stick our necks on the line. Who's going to win the league?
City.
We have
I
all
wish
day.
I wish you'd ask me next week, but I am.
Well, if that's not a cop out,
I'm gonna say United.
I think United too. So there you go. So hung jury there.
Of course, we're echoing as a collective hive mind. We're echoing the thoughts of Rafa Benitez that he offered.
You were at the press conference today, lads. Anything juicy?
Well, the juiciest part was when he gave his predictions for the league. He said
Swansea would win it.
City or United, which I thought was. Yeah, it was a big one.
He's putting his neck on the line there.
Definitely.
The gasp stopped before he offered his opinion on the Euros.
Yeah.
Spain, possibly Germany.
Yeah.
So the guy
He didn't predict us.
he knows as much as Paddy Power.
Clearly. What did he have to say about the Chelsea job, lads? I think that's what people are going to want to hear.
He refused firstly to comment on it. It was obviously the first question he was asked. He refused to comment. And on AVB, he simply said, I've experienced the same kind of thing in Italy and Spain. He was intent on telling us how harshly he was dealt with in Italy.
5 months, 2 titles, I get sacked.
Slightly more tactfully, some other journalists asked, with all the differing managerial structures in European clubs between, managing directors of football coaches, first-team coaches, which would he prefer to be involved in? And he said, obviously, he answered with a question. He said, well, would you prefer to make your own decisions or to have your decisions made for you? Which is kind of funny considering the transfer decisions he made at Liverpool were so diabolical.
Were they his?
But, and then in the same breath, he said, of course, I'd still like to take the Chelsea job, where there's little to no autonomy whatsoever.
Yeah, because taking the Chelsea job is a fantastic job. This idea that I feel sorry for everyone at the time, especially when Ancelotti was sacked, was I feel so sorry for Ancelotti. It was like his reputation doesn't come out any worse. He gets a €15 million payoff or whatever it is. And same with Villas-Boas, he'll get another job. Okay, his reputation has been damaged slightly, but he will get another job. He might get another job next week at Inter Milan. So I think the Chelsea job is a great job to take, no matter how much rubbish you might have to put up with.
In terms of Ancelotti, a guy who had a massive track record behind him, and who's his Champions League, Scudettos, and the double, even at Chelsea he'd won the double, so he did have this massive track record to fall back on. For Villas-Boas, who was coming in with one stunning season behind him, he came in, and the way he's being dealt with by the Chelsea players has to undermine him at future jobs.
Not only the Chelsea players, but the English media, the power that media has. I mean, the perception now is that Villas-Boas was a running joke for his entire time at Chelsea. So then you have people look at it from around the world saying, okay, one very good year in Portugal, one train wreck in England. Half his career has been a train wreck.
Teams.
Now, I don't agree with that. So I think that's the perception might come out.
I guarantee you he'll be in.
He'll get another job.
Yeah, a proper job. He won't be managing Stevenage. He's gonna have a proper job.
No, I think I could definitely see him at the Inter job. Definitely.
Maybe go back to the British Virgin Islands again.
Would AVB do well in Italy? That's an interesting question.
Well, I mean, we don't know enough about AVB. You've already said it. Half his career is that train wreck, and the other half is that what people he only won the league with Porto. He won the league with Porto, drawing 2 games. It was the most ridiculous, drawing 3 games and winning the rest.
Took them from 3rd to 1st.
Yeah,
so Porto weren't in great shape.
So the Chelsea job was too early for him, but he did have a fantastic season in Porto. We're going to move on from that. Dave, the big derby, Newcastle versus Sunderland.
Biggest one, yeah.
Mike Dean, he's a rubbish ref usually, but I thought he had an absolutely brilliant game given the circumstances yesterday.
He did very well. We could see from the first minute the Catamount's tackle on Tiote. You could kind of see.
It's so unlike him. He's not that type of player.
It's very strange. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all. And of course, the sending off was a shock at the end as well. But he handled it very well. The penalty decision, Williamson's tug on I can't remember what's one of the players' jersey it was. It's one of these things you see happen 6 or 7 times a game, every game, and it's just it never really gets punished. But to be fair, it is a foul. It's good to see it getting punished.
If that's spotted, that's a penalty.
Completely, yes.
You always
the manner in which the jersey was pulled across.
The defender takes the risk and deals with it. I just want to ask kind of a general question on Newcastle.
Yeah,
is this season, on the days of missed opportunities, is this season a missed opportunity? because you have Chelsea as shambles, you have Arsenal who are finally getting it together, but it took them till March, and then you have Liverpool close to West Brom as they are to Newcastle.
Yeah, and the thing about Newcastle, I kind of feel it's this team. We won't have a team as good at it for a while. We're gonna lose Barry, we're gonna lose Ciarán or Kabay, one or two of them. Hopefully now Krul and Colaccini tie down to longer contracts. They'll keep him for a while.
Krul's been brilliant, by the way.
Fantastic.
How good is
fantastic?
Really
He's
good.
very good.
But can Cisse pick up the slack of Ba, or will they need to go again?
I think we need to go. To be honest, Cisse, his all-round play hasn't looked fantastic. He's got 2 goals in his first 4 games, whatever it is. But his all-round play he doesn't contribute as much as Ba does, which is Ba is a kind of the way Ba sits in the hole adds a lot to Newcastle. It's kind of the way they play. Cisse doesn't come looking for the ball as much, and Cisse the kind of games can pass him by, which is a huge thing for Newcastle. He's not the usual number 9 for Newcastle. Is the kind of the someone who plays the channels as well, and he's not really that sort of player at first sight. Anyway, he could be. He'd
be a good partnership, but the whole point is that he's
he complements Ba.
Exactly. He's not Ba's number 1 at the minute. He's the real number 9, as they say.
Right, but, so it is disappointing. If they had more backup players, they probably could have done it.
Yeah, and it's games. We've lost away to Norris. They've lost at home to West Brom. It was games there where they really could have picked up points. Should have picked up more points.
The Wolves result last week.
The Wolves result,
especially considering Wolves result this week, which we'll move on. Terry, he was our 5th choice all along. Connor. So Wolves were horrific.
Annihilated. Yeah.
I mean, Fulham, great, and probably Eggerbach, brilliant. I did my best.
Can we get that one more time?
No, we won't.
Grovniak. Okay.
I'm going to call him Pavel. Right. So as good as they were, and Johnson, by the way, was absolutely brilliant.
Johnson and Dembele and Dempsey.
Dempsey's going to name the whole team, but no.
Dempsey's a top player.
So is Dembele. Dembele's been great.
I've always rated Dempsey very highly. I think he could have.
Interestingly, Dempsey would have played for Ireland had we decided to go and have a look at him in 01 when he wanted to play, or maybe it was 99. I'm not sure. Dempsey and Donovan both expressed interest.
Okay, but let's not get into this. But they're not Irish, and therefore.
Well, in fairness, look at all Ireland's teams in the last 30 years.
The team that qualified for the World Cup. The team qualified for the World Cup in 02 had Matt Holland in it. Had
Gary Breen
in it.
Mick McCarthy.
Had Mick McCarthy managing it. So, was it really a big deal? I mean,
I just, to be honest, it's something that's never. It's something that never has sat comfortably with me. You have the green flag, the green jersey for a reason, in my opinion. So.
But if you already had McCarthy managing.
But should we try with Tony managing now? It doesn't mean we go and sign Filippo and Zaghi.
Yeah, but Italy have a green jersey as well, or a green flag, green in their flag. So I mean, it's kind of close.
Yeah.
And we compare it to other sports as well. Look at the residency rule in rugby, which England has kind of.
In my opinion, the residency rule, in my opinion, is better than the football system because if you live and work, in a country, if you live and work in a country for 5 years, you're more Irish, in my opinion, than Andy Townsend, who never set foot in the place.
But I mean, if you looked at England a few years ago when you had Ricky Flutie playing at inside centre, in spite of the fact that he lived and worked in England for 3 years, he'd moved there when he was 25. Left there for France when he was 28, and at 29 was playing for the England team.
There's obviously ridiculous.
I do fear I've set us off our track. So Fulham and Wolves.
Well, just the relegation battle generally. Looking at it here, you've got Wigan and
4 teams on 22 points.
It's not quite as exciting as the last 2 years. The last 2 years there was about 9 teams in it, right until about 3 or 4 games to go. This year it's pretty much guaranteed. It's going to be 5. It's going to be 3 from 5. QPR, Wolves, Blackburn are on 22, and then Bolton, Wigan both on 20. Mm-hmm. Is this year Wigan finally go down?
To be honest, I hope so.
Yeah,
they're one of these clubs.
They've no business.
It's a rugby league team.
Yeah, they've no business.
It'll be tough on their fan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the kind of one of these clubs where same with Blackburn as well. Blackburn obviously the successful history, but it's always a half full stadium. They've been kind of bobbing up and down around there for the last.
I kind of like the Blackburn soap opera in the Premier League.
Their owners deserve it, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, Remember that mystery owner who approached the Premier League about getting rid of the relegation system.
Yeah,
Dream team.
there was a rumor that Venky's didn't know there was relegation, which is probably not true. Well, I don't know.
Well,
what's true.
Venky's believed when they took over Blackburn that they had the money in football terms to buy one of the best teams in the world. And then they realised after sacking Allardyce that their money was literally worthless in the super inflated football
Literally
world.
worthless, was it?
Oh dear. One in the swear jar, James. Right.
My apologies.
So who do we think then?
I think it's Wigan, Blackburn, and Wolves.
You think Bolton will get out of it?
I think Bolton will get. Originally I didn't think they. I just got a funny feeling they will get out of it.
Someone's got to get out of it. They can't all go down, unfortunately.
I think it's just time Wigan and Blackburn go. Wolves just look.
I fancy Hughes as they haven't made a great start, but Hughes is a good manager. I mean, I don't know why he signed Dribble Cisse. That's not the man you want for the trenches.
I think it's worth noting that if of those 4 teams or the 5 teams who've been named, if 3 or 4 of them go down, they'll probably go bust. Wolves are the only team that are run on any kind of an even keel.
Well, I think it just actually on that. I mean, the FA and the Premier League, but even the FA, they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. The fit and proper persons test. You look at a club like Portsmouth, and you know, a great club traditionally, and brilliant fans.
They've traditionally had plenty of administrations, though. I was reading Rod Liddell had an article about it where, you know, in his typically magnanimous kind of a way, he was saying he hoped that this was it from Portsmouth because he was listing administrations going back to the 80s, you know.
Yeah, but the fans aren't running the club, so I still feel.
But when you're talking about clubs like Portsmouth, we'll disinclude.
But
Portsmouth.
yeah, you've got Birmingham's owner up for fraud. You know, tax and Sinawatcha was allowed by Man City. Like honestly,
fantastic.
The English game really, to use a very dramatic expression, they've sold their soul, and it's a sorry sight at the moment.
Eamon Dunphy here.
Well, no, but like you look at Venky's, like those guys owning a football club, like it's such a nonsense.
Just so we know, just so the listeners know, it's important that you YouTube Venky's ad Blackburn.
Oh yeah,
because anyone hasn't seen it by now, they need to see it.
Yeah, no, I think David Dunn eating chicken.
The entire team just gathered around and played the chicken.
The start of Michelle Salgado's acting career as well.
And at the end of the line, Blackburn Rovers proudly owned by Venky's Chicken.
Salgado has some experience in acting because he was on Sky Sports and he could pretend he could speak English.
Oh dear.
No,
he was in goal, wasn't he?
He was.
Was he in goal?
Yeah, well, one of them, because Madrid.
I probably should have gone with that.
Yeah, that's where I thought you were going with it.
He was in goal too, alongside Steve McManaman.
No, I can't even remember when Salgado started on Sky Sports.
He got the nomination.
Speak a word of English, like.
He got the nomination for Best Supporting Actor in goal.
He did. Along with Steve McManaman, yeah.
The Golden Globe
for his part in goal.
We'll go back to the first game of the weekend, Arsenal Liverpool. Van Persie again.
Stunning.
Does anyone think Reina could have done better for the second goal? Am I the only one who thought?
No, you're not. I did. I thought that. But part of that is probably the fact that I've had it drilled into me since the age of about 3 from sitting listening to commentators talk about football, saying it can't be beaten at the near post.
Yeah,
that's
criminal.
Thing
is a bit of a fallacy.
But it wasn't the fact he was just beaten at the near post. It was the fact that it was a side foot, right? So it wasn't a smash rally.
Yeah.
And he kind of flapped his hand at it. He didn't put a strong hand at
I
it.
agree with that. Yeah.
So
but I don't like buying into the near post thing too much because oftentimes it can be that piece of genius from a strike. You're making the keeper decide first.
Yeah.
Cox against Czech. I won't blame Czech for Cox's goal last week.
That was fantastic. And the whole point is the keeper, you know, goes, well, he's not going to go near post.
No.
So then if the guy goes near post and scores, you can't go, well, I mean, God, you know, it's all the keeper's fault.
On that point, though, I think we have to look at how well Szczesny is doing a goal for Arsenal as well. I
thought he was brilliant, and I thought
he's really coming through as one of the top keepers in the Premiership.
Yeah, the double save,
fantastic.
I know it wasn't the cleanest of hits. The second one, the penalty was grand, but it wasn't the cleanest of hits. The rebound, but still to have the awareness to get back across, and you know, Wenger has finally found a keeper. That's you know,
he seems to be a bit of a leader on the pitch as well, which is a great thing for us because the back four don't seem to have anyone really who's capable of leading, but bar Vermaelen. But Szczesny seems to really
I agree with you more
there.
on that, on the Vermaelen thing. I don't know if he's a one man solution to the defence. I do think they need to. So the last question, Is Van Persie last year, last calendar year, 2011, and the start of this one, is he the third best player in the world? Obviously, we all know who the top two players in the world are.
Yeah, looking at the goals, yeah.
Anyone else disagree?
I think possibly because of the Zabi thing, maybe Iniesta's, because it's still so good. But
Iniesta only scored his first goal in La Liga last night. I know his game's not all about goals.
Because Van Persie's a one-man team with the fact he's carrying the team on his own, which has to.
I genuinely think that after the top two, there's a group of players who are in and around each other, and from there it becomes an issue of form.
Yeah.
I mean, a few months ago, people were saying David Silva is the third best player in the world.
Yeah.
You know, ability is to a certain extent a constant for these players in their professional era, in their professional career, and I think it's an issue of form from there. Whereas I think for the rest of their careers, Ronaldo and Messi could see themselves above the rest. But apart from that, there's a following pack.
Right, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening in. That was the Sporting Chancellors podcast presented by themeltingpress.com. Please look us up on Facebook and Twitter. My thanks to James McDermott, Colm Booth, Dave Hughes, Alex Flood on sound, and producers Tadhg Prendiville and Ciarán Schutte. We'll speak to you again next week.